Shaping Success on this great Monday morning. Myself and Robert Watson are back to discuss. Well, we were talking about what we were talking about before was about how TikTok has become a place where we are not quite certain we want to be anymore. There has been some issues that have gone on with it. And, you know, for a while we could restream on Ecamm. I use this program called Ecamm, which you're seeing this on YouTube, Facebook, a couple other places. And maybe I'll just try and see if we can get live on Instagram. But the reality is that we are not being seen. We are not being heard by the people who mean the most to us. And when you go to TikTok anymore, they try to shove a whole bunch of people in your face that you're not even trying to find. And even when you go to your following list, you're only seeing like, that's one of the things that I've noticed is like you go to your following list, you see, you know, probably 10 or 20 videos and it tells you you're at the end when you know that you follow like, I don't know. I think I have 3,000 mutual friends on there and you're not seeing all their videos. You're telling me that those people aren't posting anything. So just kind of interesting.
Yeah, I specifically have several people that I comment on their stuff every day. And then all of a sudden I realize after 2 days, I haven't heard from them. I hope they're okay. And I go find out that they've had videos and they didn't come across my screen. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to have to manually look for people now. That literally is ridiculous. But again, that's the algorithm. And I guess probably I'm going to say I'm tired of making other people rich.
Right.
Okay. So if you're not going to make my life easy and you're going to constantly change my creator platform, which they did again,
Yep.
then you know what? You can keep it. I'll go do something else.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. It's like even since, you know, I don't know how long it has been, but I haven't even really looked at it in a while. But I know that a lot of my videos were getting well over 1,000 views, and then all of a sudden you get 300, and that 300 views that you get is very minimal compared to these other people. And I was looking at, there's a couple different people on there, you know, from the bands, from this, from that. Like you see what you want to see, and I noticed that they were banning. This video popped up on my screen the other day where they were talking about how they're banning conservative people. So, and it's showing it's not even banned, but it's like they're suppressing their views or suppressing their videos, which I kind of found funny because when I went and I looked at this one page, I'm like, okay, so they're suppressing your views or they're doing whatever, they're restricting your account, and then you look at it and the guy's got like 33,000 views on every single one of his videos. You're like, so what are they really restricting? I mean, should he be hitting 300,000? Should he be going viral on every single one that he posts, or what's the deal here? But it's apparently not the same. And it's changed since, I think the biggest change came when they started doing the TikTok shop stuff, which I find funny because I get 18 like I'm monetized on TikTok and I make like probably 2 or 3 cents a day. But like I get about 18 invites a week to showcase these products for people. And then when you go to say, all right, well, you want me to showcase for you, send me a free sample, and they don't want to do that. It's like they just want you to showcase them. And I'm like sitting there going, this is stupid. And then half the time it doesn't even relate to you. Like I'm not going to put some freaking eyelashes on, you know, or some eyebrow makeup or whatever the hell they're trying to get me to promote. It's kind of funny.
Well, here's a little insider secret. So there was one of the consulting firms, and whether it was right or left leaning consulting firm, it's irrelevant. They were trying to do their job. And they released their report at the middle of March. And it basically said that TikTok won the election for Trump. In essence, they were saying that because of the demographic that moves on TikTok and the fact that he was live streaming, that it made a difference. And they put out and I don't see the back end of their research. All I've seen is the front end, meaning the data that suggests that it was a huge move. It was like 5.6% in a certain demographic. And they attributed largely to TikTok. Again, I haven't seen the back end of their data. I don't know if it's something that I could subscribe to or not. But it's one of the research projects that I'm working on right now. Truthfully, it is an experimental model where it basically takes the shapes of things like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and it basically says, is there something different about these platforms? Is it just demographics? Is it that more people with open minds are on TikTok? We don't know. And so we're starting to do experimental designs to figure out what is actually driving this. In other words, is it really true
Right.
that it made a difference in the election? Now, again, remember, platform isn't going to change everything, it's people. But if they suggest that there was a way to target people, that might be the backlash that you're feeling on the TikTok world, is because of some of this research that's coming out and suggesting that it was skewing the election results. Now, did you really skew the election? I doubt it. But the fact that the data's out may be one of the reasons why you're seeing such a pushback against the conservative side. I don't know. We're doing the original research now. Again, that's part of doing this communications masters. We're starting to look at media and how media influences. So again, I'll keep everybody up to date, but it is an interesting premise.
Well, and it's funny too, because we all know how the mainstream media, kind of says what they want to say. They don't really have facts that back anything. They just say what they want to say and what they want to convince those people who won't go look at the real scenarios. And it's funny because a lot of times, like we posted something about Doge the other day and how I can't remember what we were talking about, but they're like, it's not transparent. They're not transparent. Where you can go straight to Doge.com and you can look at exactly what they're talking about, and it'll tell you the latest work, what they're doing, and how they're being very straightforward. And so a lot of people are going to social media to see what's actually really going on, because that's where they're talking about. Now, it used to be, I think probably during like the first Trump election where it was Hillary and him, like you could see like they were just posting a lot of fake stuff, and you would just have to go through that and sift through that, and then you go look on the media or wherever you look and you do your research, and you realize that they're just feeding you full of a bunch of bullshit. And now it's really wide open, because every time Elon Musk does something, he will take and he'll post it on X. So like it's right there for everyone to see. However, no one wants to, like, the people. It's weird. The people who watch the mainstream media typically don't go look on social media, and vice versa. Like they're all looking in the opposite place. And then when the majority of the real stuff is being posted straight from the book out on social media, you're missing the mark. So it's, you gotta look on both ends of it. You gotta see both sides of the whole situation, which I think we've challenged people to do that a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm about ready to submit a paper to peer review, and before the paper goes to peer review, it's going to kind of do another presentation review, meaning where an open audience of my peers are literally going to comment and give suggestions and stuff before it goes to peer review. One of the things about peer review, you may think your peers are whatever, but they are professionals in that arena. They are looking at the quality of the work. They are looking at how you do it. This is one of the things that's a check and balance. Again, I appreciate Elon Musk posting it on X, but I think that he's trying to be transparent, but I'm not the auditor.
Right.
So if somebody's asking me to vouch for him, I can't vouch for that. It's like anything else in the news. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love peer review.
Yeah.
Right. If something survives presentation to a wide audience and then peer review, it's not bullshit. It has substance. Now, I'm not saying that it's perfect, but I'm saying that there's a lot of eyes that have been on this, right?
Yeah.
A lot of eyes that have looked at this. So that's the thing is I mean, there's an auditor that can come in after Doge, right, and look at it. So not only are they trying to be transparent, but again, I'd like to see the auditor's results.
Yeah,
Why?
and I think
Because
that's what he's trying
their
to do.
opinion too.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like peer review, auditor, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, there's a second set of eyes looking at it. Now, Elon Musk can say whatever he can say, but what he's doing is he's bringing it to light, then showing it to whoever needs to see it.
Yep.
And that's kind of the same thing with a peer-reviewed article. I don't know necessarily that, and I want to explain to the audience, because I'm not saying that you don't know, but I never knew what a peer-reviewed article was until I went to college. It's one of those things where someone writes an article, and it's basically fact-checked by multiple people who actually are in the same thing. So, like, as a athletic training major, there was a study on repairing meniscus versus taking part of your meniscus out, which is some cartilage in your knee, right? Which is better, and so you get 10 people who say it's repairing, you get 10 people who say it's taken some out, and they all sit there and they talk, and then they do the research and they go through the amounts of study and to find out if it's a good one or not. Like they've done multiple. If it's peer reviewed and they only did 3 cases, well, that's not very good data, because 3 cases out of millions of people is a very low margin of error. But if you had, they did it over thousands or hundreds of thousands, then you're going to have a real number, a real answer to what that is. So basically your peers come back through, they do the research, and they figure out if what you're saying holds any merit, if it's bullshit or not, and to get someone like the news media anywhere who just posts something or just say something is not peer reviewed. It becomes, like Robert and I have talked about before, more like an opinion piece. Like it should say, this is my opinion, because this is not fact. And that's where we're at with this media. It's like everyone's got an opinion. And for those people who love The View, you look at The View, that is just an opinion. That is all it is. It's 5 ladies sitting up there, 4 ladies. I don't even know how many are up there. I don't watch it, but they just spew a bunch of bullshit that's their opinion. It's not truth. It's not factual. And you'll notice they get in trouble a lot for saying some of the things that they say because they're not true.
Yeah, one of the battles with peer review, so not to make that the end all be all, is it means that the state of research at this moment, this survives peer review. Now, 10 years from now, that might completely change. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we were talking about with vaccines. I have a good friend who's been a nurse practitioner for, my gosh, it's 25 years now. We were talking about vaccines. There's vaccines that are 80 years old. We have enough data. The N, as we call it in research, is millions. We have tons of data on these vaccines that they're incredibly safe and have done an amazing job. But when your vaccine is brand new and the N is 8,000 people, that doesn't tell us a lot about 6 billion.
Right.
It's not a very good sample, and it's not enough time. And it's not that it's wrong or right. It's just a fact. To get a good sampling of something, you need to take a big sample. Ultimately, you'd like to sample the whole thing.
Right.
But that's a little, the reality of sampling every human being is going to be difficult. So you have to take some kind of sample that supposed to represent. Then it becomes generalizable to the total audience, as you were talking about the meniscus thing. Yep. Because there is, because I have a torn meniscus in my left knee. So that is one of the things that I had to talk to the team physicians, and I went to the football physicians and said, what is this going to do? Well, here's the good news and here's the bad news, because there's good and bad. And everybody doesn't heal the same. Everybody is not Adrian Peterson,
right,
where you have surgery and you're back in 3 months. Some people take longer. And so this idea of truth is not this thing that you can sometimes put a pin in a board and say it's done. It becomes this wide range of outcomes. But what we're really talking about is the attempt of people to get at truth versus just opinion.
Yep. Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. It's just like you said, you can't you base that off of. My wife and I were talking about the same thing this weekend. It was like there's an outbreak of measles. I don't know if anyone's, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's this it's called an outbreak. I'm sitting here going, is it really an outbreak? I go, are they talking about, because like Idaho just did something about mandating vaccines, and I haven't looked at what it is, but like they're telling you, I can't remember what it was. I didn't look at it, but she was talking to me about it. I'm like, she wasn't very clear on what they mandated, but it had something to do with like, you can't go to school if you don't have the vaccines. Well, or they can tell you that you can't come to work unless you get the vaccine. So it was kind of like with COVID, where people who did not have the vaccine were either fired or let go because they refused to take the vaccine. Well, that's a completely different vaccine. Like at the time, there's these anti-vaxxers, and then there's people who just don't get the vaccine or whatever. And the anti-vaxxers, she's talking about those people, is what they were talking about, as people who are just like, I'm against vaccines. Well, I'm not against vaccines. I'm against a vaccine that has just been made 3 months ago, and you're telling me that it's going to work, and I'm going to stick this in my body, and there's not going to be there's no study on it, right? Like, that's my problem. The measles vaccine has been around forever. People have been, it's been tested, this and that, blah, 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 blah. And now we have, instead of 250 cases, we have over 700 cases that are nationwide. Still, 700 out of however many people in the US is very minuscule compared to what that is, and it's really only risen 500. Not a good thing to have the measles, right? Because it's been completely eradicated or whatever to some point, and now people have it again. But those are the anti-vaxxers who think that vaccines are not good for you, or people who can't afford health care to take their kids to get vaccinated or things like that. And it's just a completely different scenario. Not the same as COVID of a unvetted vaccine that we just basically did this big experiment on the whole country to get them to take this and then find out that it doesn't really do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the MMR, which is measles, mumps, and rubella, I
Yeah.
believe is the one that has been around for a long time. And I'm not saying it's not reformulated, but yes, we have a lot of data on it. We have lots and lots of data. This brings up a really interesting and compelling issue. So if you have measles that has been eradicated from the United States, ask yourself the question, what changed?
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the answer is the way you deal with immigration from countries that don't have good health care.
Right.
That's how things come into the environment. That's the reality. And again, it's not saying that you don't allow people in. That's not it. But remember where things come from. If you have a closed environment, right? And all of a sudden now you have things that change, you have to realize that what do you want to do with these kind of healthcare problems? Try it as best to nip them in the bud. That's
Right.
the only issue. You just want to try as best you can. There's no complete answer, and there's no complete answer to how you handle people coming into the country from other places. There's no perfect answer, but
Right.
you do need to improve the way you vet.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of the thing. It's like you sit here and you act like this is the way that it's going to be everywhere, and it's not necessarily that way. So again, do the study, do the research, know what you're talking about. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think that's the battle that everybody's facing is that, again, if TikTok is in fast pushing back against the idea that somehow the platform made a difference in the general election, well, okay, I get it, but really, to be honest with you, I haven't seen the data, so really, really not going to be comfortable with that TikTok made a difference. Now, if they're responding to that, then they're responding to that. I can't do anything about it. It's their platform.
Right.
Again, we don't pay a fee to be on it. We're on for free. If we don't like it, leave.
Yep. Exactly.
Simple terms. Yeah.
Yep. And I mean, I think at this point, it's kind of one of those deals where I've questioned that quite a few times in the last couple of weeks. It's like, is this necessarily something that I need? Is this somewhere where I need to be? Is this bringing me value? And the only value that I can vet out of it at this point is that the great people that I have met. But then the problem is you don't get to see the great people that you met anymore without like completely searching for them and finding them, which becomes a daunting task when you follow or have as many followers as I have or you have or any. Like, I mean, when you get, let's be honest, when you get over following 100 people, it's like, am I going to sit there and go through my phone every single day and go through the 100 people? I mean, that's a lot of work to go make sure that you see the people that you're seeing.
Yeah. You've heard of what's called the Dunbar number, which is how many people you can actively keep up with in your life. And the Dunbar number suggests that is about 150 people.
Mm-hmm.
That's people that are close to you, the 5 or 6 people that are very, very close to you, and then the 20 or so people who are in your what's called strong ties. And then you have the people outside of that. It's about 150 people. Can you imagine? And that's what happens to me in the morning as I probably have about 300 people that post on my site during a week.
Uh-huh.
Okay. In other words, they're regular. So if you went and looked, they are 300 people that post more than once on my site.
Right.
Okay, cool. But can you imagine me trying to find that 300 people every day?
Yeah.
I'm not going to. I'm just not. And I feel bad because it's like all of a sudden I recognize that I haven't said anything on 3 days on their post, but it's not because I don't like them anymore. It's I don't see them.
Right. And how, yeah, I mean, that's the hard part. It's like when you have people like that too. And like some people will play the other way and they'll be like, well, you don't even go and look here. Or you don't even go look there. It's like, I'm sorry. I don't know what you want me to do. I have a life too.
Yeah.
And when you have when you have 1,000 people, you know, like it's a tough thing. And the people, you have that circle, right? Like there's people that I talk to every day. There's people that I talk to once a week. There's people that I talk to once a month. There's people that I can go years without talking to. And that's kind of how it's become with it. So yeah, it's tough to
technology.
find. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh,
No, technology.
Technology. Go ahead.
Technology puts us in an interesting position because it amplifies, right, what we could normally do in a given day with the phone. And it amplifies those connections. And some of that is good and some of that's bad, right?
Right.
The good news is we get to reach people. The bad news is that's a lot of people to keep track of.
Yep. Well, and we're sitting here, I'm complaining about 300 views, but that's 300 people that I didn't have an audience before, right? So there's that option as well. But yeah, I think the big takeaway is that, yeah. I think that's the first time we've had a moment like that where we're talking over each other and we can't get, it's like that awkward when you're walking somewhere and someone's coming straight at you and you're like, you go right and then they go right and you go left and they go, you know, it's that dance.
Exactly. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah. Well, good conversation today. TikTok is, as Nikki might say, TikTok is whack or TikTok is fucked. But, you know, hopefully we can get it back to where it was. If not, you know, we have two choices, right? We can like the way that they're doing things or we can move on. And that's the great thing about life.
You have a wonderful week, and I hope things are going good in the new business, which we haven't talked about.
Yeah, and I was kind of going back and forth in my head about talking about that. We'll have to decide. I think we have to have a pre-discussion about how to discuss it. Business is good, though. Business is good. It's good. It's a lot of those things that, you know, kind of hold you back in the other side. So anyway, we appreciate y'all hanging out here. We will be back on Wednesday. Hope you have an awesome, awesome week. Please make sure that you like, share, and follow. Leave a review over on Apple Podcasts if you can. It really helps us to grow. Share the podcast with someone that may need to